This episode of the Jake Sewell Podcast brought to you by Boxer Baby Bow Ties. If you have a cat or dog, you have to check out Boxer Baby Bow Ties. These are fashionable accessories for cats and dogs that are handmade by owner Kyle Marie Carsey right here in Indiana. You live out of state? No worries. All items ship anywhere in the U.S. So pamper your fur baby and show off their unique personality with their accessories for fashion-forward pets. Contact Kyle at boxer.baby.bowties@gmail.com or on Instagram at boxer.babies.bowties. Also check out her online store at boxerbabyboutique.com. Welcome to the Jake Sewell Podcast. Joining me today is Chris Day, who is one of the co-founders of the Four for the Fourth in Yorktown, and also a true Ironman. Chris, true Ironman, is that true?
True Ironman, that's
Wow.
correct, Jake, yes.
That's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, I think so.
So I wanted to have you on. I was wanting to promote the Four for the Fourth. It's obviously the 4-mile run on July 4th in Yorktown at Morrow's Meadows. So I want to have someone on to talk about that, promote that. And then I got talking to you and I heard your whole backstory and I thought, this is excellent. This is the type of people I want to have on here. You have quite a backstory of a weight loss journey, doing the Ironman, starting this 4 for the Fourth. So we got a lot to talk about. But first of all, where are you from originally?
Yeah, sure. So, born and raised in Connorsville, Indiana. Graduated high school there in 1992.
Spartan?
Spartan through and through. My family, my parents, everybody. Family's still there, doing well. And if I get home once in a while, it's straight into town, see them, and straight back out. Not a whole lot going on in Connorsville right now,
It's a pretty laid back town, yeah.
It is. So, born and raised there, and then moved to Muncie came to Ball State in fall of '92.
What did you study at Ball State?
Yeah, so I was a music education major, teaching license and degree and so forth. I was on the 5-year plan. I think a lot of educators, especially, end up in that realm just because there's so many extra steps to it. But so that was the game plan was to come to Ball State and get a music education degree and go on to be the best band director I could be.
What instruments were you involved with?
Yeah, so I was a percussionist. Of course, learning to become a band director, you got to learn how to play everything. Thankfully, you don't have to learn how to play everything well. But yeah, we went through all the different instruments. So percussion, in high school, I guess I would call myself a drummer. But as I came through Ball State, definitely learned a lot of mallet technique and 4-mallet technique, timpani, and the whole 9 yards.
Still play music?
Yeah, I don't get to play as much as I'd like to. I do some subbing at church if it's a Dire Straits situation and they need somebody to jump in on the drum set or what have you. But no, the time isn't there the way it used to be to be involved in that manner.
So after college, you graduate with this degree. What did that lead to?
Yeah, so actually, my degree at Ball State, my undergrad degree, I didn't really know exactly what to do with that. So I ended up moving to Southern Illinois and going straight into my master's there. So did a graduate assistantship in music. Had a great professor that could do both percussion and conducting with me, and then graduated there, Southern Illinois in Carbondale, go Salukis, 1999.
That's back when they had some great basketball teams.
There were, and I would like to think that I got to witness a lot of that as I got to go to every high school, or not high school, but college, or rather, pep band game, basketball, football, everything.
Yeah, that's when I learned actually what a Saluki was.
Yeah.
They had some deep runs in the tournament back in the late 90s, early 2000s.
We did, and coming out of there, you don't see them on TV very often anymore, but they've got some good programs.
So you go there, you finish up your master's. Did you get a job being a band director after that?
Yeah, so I met my wife, my wife Molly, at Ball State, and she was a year or two behind me. She moved with me to Illinois after she finished up her degree. We got married that year, 1998, and I think we both wanted to get back to Indiana. But she also was a band director. And so finding a school corporation that would hire 2 band directors and we could kind of be the dream team, if you will, teaching band, changing lives one student at a time, it just didn't really match up. So we had a unique opportunity to get back to Indiana in Shelby County. We lived in Shelbyville. I traveled northwest to Triton Central. She traveled southeast to Waldron. And we taught in Shelby County 1999, 2000, 2001. And then we changed it up a little bit.
What was the big change?
Well, at the end of the day, instead of having our students as our children, we decided we wanted our own children. So when it came time to start a family, we made the decision to change career paths and hopefully put myself in a position where she could stay home and raise our children. So at that point, I had an uncle who was a financial advisor with Edward Jones. And I had seen the way that he lived and his lifestyle and his family and thought that looked rather appealing. So kind of talked to him about it. Next thing you know, I'm back in Muncie. Wanted to be close to home. She's a Monroe Central grad, so she's from this area. We wanted to be back here to raise our family, and so we chose Muncie, Delaware County, and set up shop here. Started studying for the broker's exam. And and that's actually still what I'm doing today, 18 years later.
How's financial advising changed over the last 18 years? I know we've had obviously a lot of scandal, and
Sure.
it gets bad rap, but then again, there's a lot of great people in the field. How have you dealt with all that?
Well, you can imagine. I mean, the year was 2001, and I made the decision to make this drastic career change and started studying for the exam in that summer. I was not quite fully licensed to sell yet, and 9/11 happened. And so I really think that being a young advisor, I was 26 years old, and I think that just taught me right out of the gate to be a little more cautious, a little more observant, to be a better listener. And I think it served me well over the last 18 years. And you're right, certainly 2008, 2009 was very challenging and difficult. And I'm sure we'll have another bubble like that again at some point to deal with, but that's why I have a job.
It's always cyclical, it seems like.
It is. It's just part of it. So trees don't grow to the sky, buy low, sell high, all the good stuff, right?
Right. So one thing, you had sent me your blog. You kept a blog for multiple years when I was trying to get some background history on you. And one thing I noticed that really stuck out to me was your weight loss journey.
Yeah.
Can you give me the background of what you got to and what your decision was to make a change?
Yeah, well, you can imagine being a band director, you're on your feet a lot. You're on your feet all day as a teacher, most teachers anyway, and certainly all the evenings and after schools and weekends and rehearsals, marching band, very active. And then going to, not that I sit at a desk all day, but more or less a desk job. I'm kind of tied to the desk, and my activity level went way down. At the same time, we started having children, 1 child, 2 child, 3 children later, 2009, and I'd gained over 100 pounds from when I left teaching. So the year was 2007. My son was born, and my youngest son, Carter, and he was kind of we knew that was it. So obviously my wife was interested in losing the baby weight, and I was I guess I was eating for 5 of us as well. So that was kind of the mental change, like something has got to give. 2009, I topped the scales at 310 pounds.
Was yours lifestyle, diet, or all the above?
Yeah, I mean, it was just lazy habits. There was no discipline. In high school, I wasn't necessarily a runner, but I was a thrower, discus and shot put. And even when I was teaching, I was an assistant track coach, discus and shot put. And but I would run with the kids after school every day, and just real active. So just going from all that to nothing. When it was time to make a change, I knew I could do it. I knew that I had the legs under me to get active again, and so that was the mental switch, 2007.
So you started your journey in 2007.
Yeah, so I didn't really start blogging at that time because at first it was just like I'm the fat guy on the treadmill, and something's got to give. So it was just kind of one day at a time, doing what I could. I'm a numbers guy. I mean, obviously in music, a lot of numbers, in financial advising, a lot of numbers. So I'm constantly data driven, and so just recording all that and going through with it was kind of what kept me on track and kept me focused. So just daily journaling.
What was your either daily or weekly routine to have such a big weight loss over those years?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that my journey, the end of this story is that I lost that 100 pounds. I mean, that's really the punchline here. So from 2007 to 2011, it's a 4 or 5 year journey. And it took a while to get that going. So for a while, it was just, if you could just walk to the end of the block and back, that's a good start. But it's that first step. And so as that grew and became a habit, which ultimately became an addiction to get out and run, I just didn't feel good if I didn't get out and do something. So if I was on the treadmill and just trying to get to 30 minutes, there's a great program out there, Couch to 5K. I think it's a great program. It's an app that's available, and kind of use that as my launch pad, so to speak. But yeah, as I got further along, 2009, 10, 11, that's really when it became an addiction.
Was running your main source of exercise?
It was. I mean, that was really all I wanted to do was run. I'll never forget the year that I decided to do a marathon. It was in the spring. I decided to do my first full marathon in the fall. And I was still somewhere in the 280 range. So I'd only lost about 30 pounds. And in the process of going through that and getting, to that first marathon finish line, it was probably a 40-pound journey. And that was probably where the real intensity began. But through marathon 1, 2, 3, and some other stuff, I realized I couldn't just, because I'm 6'2", right? 310 pounds. I mean, I'm just destroying my knees with every step. I had to do some cross training. So that led to exploring a little bit on the bike, getting in the pool and doing some swimming, some non-abrasive things to the knees. And that's really what launched the triathlon addiction at that point.
How did you change your diet?
Yeah, so the diet is so I had this conversation with my physician, obviously, you like to eat, right? Yeah, sure, I like to eat. Well, if you're going to keep running, the problem is you've got to fuel that, right? So you're losing weight, but you're not really changing your diet. You're just, that calorie count is still a deficit. That's why you're losing weight. The more I ran, the more I ate. If I'm going out and running 20 miles today, I'm going to consume a lot of calories on the back end of that, most likely. And the night before, I got to prepare for it as well. So, the food didn't change the way it was supposed to. Well, the problem then became probably where I'm at today, which is I don't run as much, and I didn't change my eating. I still eat like I run, 40 miles a week. And obviously I don't anymore. So a lot of that weight has come back on in the last 5-6 years. Today I probably sit somewhere in the 250 range. Still 60 pounds off my high, but my actual low was 201. It was 7 years ago. And I don't know that I'll ever get back to that. Frankly, I don't know that I want to get back to that.
Then you mentioned the up and down.
Yeah.
I've experienced that in my working out.
Sure.
I'm consistent, then I'm not. When you were really in your weight loss journey and the training, what were some of the up and downs you went through?
Yeah, so there's obviously the emotional part of that goes along with it. And so for me, it was eating like it was my job Monday through Friday, and then basically spoiling myself on the weekends. And that matched up well with the training plans because most training plans have you doing a long run on the weekend. So if I'm going to run base miles for the week of 4-6 miles 2 to 4 times, and then I'm going to head out for a 12, 14, 16 mile or whatever it may be, then I'm going to consume a lot more calories. It's fine because I burned a lot more calories. What would happen is when you became sick or injured and you missed one of those long runs through marathon training, through any progress that you're tracking, anytime something derails you, what is your mental ability? What is that focus and drive, that grit to get you back on track, to stay on track? And that's been that's something that's still with me today, even as I am not as focused on events, if you will. But certainly in the process of trying to drive down to that 200 number. And I hate to say I was so focused on the goal. I liked the way I felt. I liked the energy level I had. I liked the way my clothes fit. And I just felt good. I was sharp. I was focused at work. And I actually worked less hours, in part because I needed to get home so that I could get those long runs in before the sun went down. But when you've got a finite amount of time to squeeze that into, it's amazing how focused you can be and really dial that in.
How would you deal with the distractions, holidays? I know, for example, like me and my wife, we both work out a lot. We get to a holiday, and it's like we skip our workouts, we change our diets. Yeah. How did you deal with that during this journey?
Yeah, I think for me, it was always having the end goal in mind. So while the weight loss journey was an end goal, typically it was matched up with an event. So if it was that fall marathon or that spring half marathon, or when I get into triathlon season, certainly building up to the full Ironman, that's a process in and of itself. So I'll take you down that journey just a little bit. So 2012 was when I really started to dive into that. My wife Molly is the director of volunteers for the Muncie Ironman, which used to be the Muncie Endurathon. It's the longest running half Ironman distance race in the country, and celebrating 40 years this year. She still does that. So watching those athletes out there the second weekend of July was just ultra inspiring to me. I wanted to do what they did. So I set that as part of my kind of cross training to do that. Built up very nicely. So the summer of 2012 was to be my first half Ironman here in Muncie. And that particular year, it was 100 degrees on race week, and they ended up shortening the distance to basically an Olympic distance triathlon. So here I had trained for 6 weeks only to be shut out from that first opportunity. No problem. There was a race up in Michigan, an Ironman sponsored race up at Steelhead that was available the next month, so I made that my first. Came back in 2013 and did Muncie as well on my way to the full Ironman in Louisville in the fall of 2013.
Now, what was your first marathon? Because that's a huge step
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So marathon number one was the Monumental Marathon in Indianapolis, fall of 2011. And part of that process was obviously driven by the weight loss and where I wanted to be. And then the following year we did Chicago, was number 2. Came back and did Monumental again, was number 3. We did the Indianapolis Marathon. It's in Fort Bend. No longer offers a full distance race, was number 4. And then I had the luxury of going and racing Boston in 2015. And the New York City Marathon in 2016.
So you qualified for Boston.
So I did not qualify for Boston, but I have some amazing sponsors that helped me get an entry there. So, yeah. My sponsors came 2 different ways. I had an amazing opportunity. I was in Las Vegas racing the Rock and Roll Vegas half marathon. And during the expo, a booth for chocolate milk was available, national brand. And they had a little booth that just said, shoot a commercial, tell us your story, win a chance to be on the team. I had no idea what I was doing. Admittedly, I may have had a few drinks. I was in Las Vegas. And I was attending the expo, and I told my story. I had a before and after picture on my phone. They zoomed in tight on it, and then I talked about how much I love chocolate milk. I love drinking it after I work out, and so on and so forth. And a few months later, they called and said, we want you on our team. So they pay for a lot of my race entries. They supply a lot of the gear and so forth that I race in.
Which that can really add up.
It
to
really
a big
does
expense.
add up. Yeah, the travel's one thing, but the gear, especially in triathlons, it really piles up. So that was fortunate with that. And then with Boston, the title sponsor is John Hancock, which is an investment firm. And so because we offered John Hancock products and they knew my story and they knew that I was involved, they offered me a sponsored entry into their race.
Is that a different atmosphere at the Boston? Because it is one of the most prestigious marathons.
Man, I tell you, it's everything you can imagine. I got to race it 2 years after the bombings, so the security was just over the top, and it's just an awesome experience. Race day itself was terrible. 30-mile-an-hour winds, headwinds all the way, pouring down rain, wind chill in the probably high 40s. I mean, it was brutal day. My second worst time, and it didn't matter. It was still the best experience. Boston is everything it's built up to be.
Is it so prestigious because you actually, for most, you have to have a set time or qualifying time?
Yeah. I've taken some cheap shots from some folks about racing Boston having not qualified, but there's a number of ways that the folks can race Boston. Not the least of which is through a sponsorship, but also charities. So if there's a charity that you're compelled to really go after and support, and you're a runner. You should check it out. Go to the Boston Marathon website, BAA.org, and look under the charity link there. A number of charity spots. And so, if you got some good friends that'll support you along the way, raise a few bucks for your favorite charity at the same time, and get to run Boston, it's not a bad week.
Now, running a marathon's one thing. It's 26.2, right?
Right.
But you wanted to add, let me see if I get this correct here, 2.4-mile swim.
That's right.
And 112-mile bike.
That's right.
Before the marathon. To do a full Ironman.
Yeah, you got to be a little sick in the head to want to do that.
When you start training for a full Ironman, what kind of training are you doing, and how much time does it take up?
Yeah, it's a full-time job. And let me first say, I won't say I'm a one and done, but I've only done one so far. And there are several folks in this community who have done multiples, 10 or more, who are much better athletes than myself. But I think that's what makes my story unique, is just by looking at me, you would not expect me to be that guy. And so not only is it a 2.4-mile swim, 112-mile bike, and a full marathon, but you have to do it in under 17 hours to be an official finisher. So you know what you're up against. And yeah, the training it's a full-time job. The number of times that I, thankfully in my job, I've got the flexibility to leave when I need to. But it's really hard to take time away from family, to take time away from work, and say, hey, I'm headed out. I got to do 4 hours on the bike today. I got to do 3-hour run today. I need to go swim for an hour nonstop. Those statements alone sound crazy, let alone trying to stack all that, in multiples throughout one day. I'll say it again right here. Thank you to my wife for being so giving and understanding during that time. Our children were quite young, 2013. And my gosh, it was a dream that I desperately wanted. I was extremely focused, and barring any injury or mechanical issue, I had all the confidence in the world that I would finish it.
What was a typical week of training?
Yeah, so typical week of training was 3 swims, typically in the morning, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at the Y downtown was where I did most of that. Typical bike week was 2 or 3 bikes during the week and a long ride on Saturday or Sunday, depending on how the schedule worked out. But those bikes could be, maybe 40 miles on the week and maybe 100 miles at the peak, on the weekend. The runs were usually 2 or 3 runs a week. Those were anywhere from 6 to 8 miles on each run. And then the long run could be anywhere from 12 to 20, depending on where you were, in the process. So basically for me, I ran it as a 26-week training plan, but I also incorporated the half Ironman distance in the middle of that. So the Muncie race was halfway, and then I had about another 13 weeks to build up for the full.
What's your mentality when you're getting ready at the starting line? You've done all this training for 26 weeks, and you have all this. You have this giant task in front of you.
Right.
You got a 2.4-mile swim, 112 on the bike, then a marathon.
Right.
What's it like standing at that starting line?
It's intimidating, honestly, because it's still dark out. The sun hasn't even come up, right? The gun doesn't even go off until the sun comes up. That's just so the lifeguards can see who they're looking for in the water. It's in Louisville, so you're swimming in the Ohio River. Not exactly the most glamorous body of water to be swimming in, but you've done the work. And if you've done the work and you've put in the training, that's what gives you the confidence. The other thing is the support. The triathlon community, the running community, whether you're a first-timer or I don't even know what timer, the support is always there. It's such a welcoming community. You can go to any race for any type of event, running, swimming, biking, or triathlon, makes no difference, and just be embraced, especially by folks who find out it's your first time. So when you've got that level of support and the level of confidence required, there's a sense of calm. There really is. You know it's going to be a long day, and so you just you're not going to win it on the swim, but you might lose it on the swim, right? You go out too hard or whatever, you do something different that you haven't done on your training, it's not going to end well for you. But just sticking to the plan, the nutrition plan is probably the 4th discipline, because you think about when do you eat, right? Breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, 17 hours. You got to eat all your meals while you're racing. And so, coming out of the water and getting some fluids in you and getting on the bike and eating while you're biking, that takes some practice, right? And then coming off the bike, and my goal was to be on the run by 6 o'clock because I knew that I could get a 6-hour marathon in and be done before midnight. Midnight was the cutoff. And so I came off the bike somewhere in the 5 o'clock range and felt pretty good that if I needed to walk every step of the marathon, I would still finish. So thankfully, there were no mechanical issues. We had decent weather. It was hot. Louisville in those months was pretty brutal, but it was a great day. It really was. Had my family there, had some friends there, had some friends chasing me on the run. They brought their bikes. It's life-changing. Honestly, it's the best word I can come up with, is life-changing.
A good friend of mine did the Ironman in Louisville, I think 2 years ago,
Okay.
2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
And she talked about it's basically a roller coaster the whole
Right.
race.
It is.
There were times, especially when she was around people, she felt good, accomplished. All right, let's do this. And then at times she goes, I'd be out on my bike and I'd be by myself 60 miles out, and it felt like a wall. Did you have that same experience?
No doubt. And Louisville is hilly. There are hills in Louisville that we do not have here in Delaware County, and I did not train well for those hills. And when you hit one of those hills, and you've got it in your easiest gear and you're still feeling like you're going nowhere and guys are flying by you because they've done the work and maybe you didn't work as hard as you wanted to, it was pretty defeating. There were plenty of moments of doubt, no question about it. But when you're in those moments, and you can't close your eyes, you're on the bike, but when you can reflect on all those early mornings and all those weekends and the time that you gave up to be with your family and your kids, selfishly even, how can you quit? You just can't quit at moments like that. You must continue, even if it's just one foot in front of the other. You find a way.
What did it feel like when you crossed that finish line?
Yeah. Some of my favorite pictures. I don't always buy the race photos at the end of the race. I bought every single photo available to me at the end of that race. So I finished in the dark. If you run too fast, you got to finish. You finish in the light, right? It's actually a lot cooler to finish in the dark. So 4th Street Live. Anybody familiar with the Louisville area? 4th Street Live is the finish line.
Neat area.
Man, I can't think of a better place to finish an Ironman than 4th Street Live, because if you've not been there, just feel like you're running through this open air mall almost. It's canopy, and so everything echoes, and the music is at 10 plus, and the people are on both sides just pounding on the walls. It just echoes, and you can't hear anything but yourself just screaming. And when you see the lights, because it's completely dark in that last half mile, but you can see the finish line and you can see the lights and you can hear it. And it's just that last half mile, you just feel like you're just floating on clouds. It's unbelievable. And for me, that was, 15 hours into the race, and I couldn't feel anything. And so, there's some really good videos out there on the blog with my wife screaming and our friends were there. Gosh, it was just such a memorable moment.
I can see how you light up when I said that. It had to be lifetime.
Yeah, it is. And that's why I won't say one and done, because I want to experience that again. But knowing what it took to get there at this point in my life, with my family, my children, my career, it's really, really hard to balance that right now.
How was it after that race? That week, a couple days after, a couple weeks after, I guess. The soreness, the recovery.
It hurt. I mean, it really hurt. You put yourself through that in training, and you think you know what hurt is, and then you finish that. And I remember getting back to the hotel and just wanting to take an ice bath, which sounds ridiculous, but that's really what I wanted to do. And so I got in the bath, and my wife just kept going down the hallway in the hotel to fill the ice bucket and bring it back. Do it again. Make another trip. More ice. But then I couldn't get up, right? I mean, I literally my legs didn't work. So yeah, it was painful the next day. Thankfully, she was willing to drive home, because I would not have been able to make that drive. But it hurt for a while. And the recovery time, they always talk about recovery time being 1 day for every mile you ran. So if you ran a half marathon, you ought to take 2 weeks off. If you ran a full marathon, maybe you ought to take 3-4 weeks off. How much time do you take off if you run an Ironman? It's 140 days you got to take off, right? So that's a lot of miles. I didn't take 140 days off. I had other goals. So right back to it. Boston Marathon was next on my bucket list, and went after that in 2015, and New York. So New York City 2016 was my last full. I haven't done a full since. The knees definitely started taking a beating. Some weight came back, and I wasn't as driven as I was. Not that I've lost it, but it certainly, just knowing what it takes is hard. I took a fall in February, slipped on some ice, fell down some stairs. Currently recovering from a partial tear of my MCL, but I still went ahead and did the Indy Mini in May. Again, it's the addiction part of it, but the Mini was my 10th Indy Mini and my 25th half marathon. So
that's impressive. It's quite a story. Like he said, you got to 310 and then you did an Ironman. I hope people listen to this can just find a little inspiration from that, and they should.
Thank you.
Now, during all this training, the running, and we're blessed. We have the greenways around here.
That's right.
But the way the greenway runs, it's basically towards Richmond and towards Gaston. It's kind of an angle through the county. Yorktown, I know where you guys are at.
Right.
Really don't have a lot of trails. Mm-hmm. Didn't some of this training lead to the 4 the 4th?
No, for sure it did. So when you need a 20-mile training run and you live in Yorktown, you kind of pull out a map and go, well, where can I run, right? I'm not going to go do 80 laps at the high school track to get that 20 miles in. So we would set out, a small group of us, and we'd say, okay, we got to do a 20-miler today. We're going to run to the mall and back, which just sounds ridiculous, right? From Yorktown to the mall and back, that'll get you 20 miles. Well, there's a lack of safe places to run when you're trying to run to the mall and back. And not that that was the goal. So it became very inconvenient to have to drive to the Cardinal Greenway trailhead, park there, and then take off on a 20-mile run where I could run 10 miles south and then back to the trailhead. So as we're running through Yorktown, there's a small group of us that quite literally just said to ourselves, what would it take for us to to be able to get a run in and not have to worry about getting hit by cars. Instead of jumping into the ditch every time a car comes or hoping they see you at that hour of the morning when the sun maybe is just coming up, what would it take? And so we looked at our favorite routes and we looked at where we lived. We lived in 3 different neighborhoods, and we couldn't even get from one neighborhood to the next to meet up to start the run safely. And so this was, 4 for the 4th was born in 2011. And that was right when I'd started this training. 2009 was really in heavy, and I'll give a big shout out to Pete Olson, town manager of town of Yorktown, and our good friend Ted Johnson, born and raised Tiger Yorktown all the way through and through, and just been a runner, just an incredible runner for a long time. And the 3 of us were kind of the runners that came up with this idea. And we knew that it was going to take some dollars and some support, so we went to the town council. And kind of the 4th man on was Bob Ratchford, who was on the town council at the time, and said, I'll do whatever I can to support you, both financially and from a town perspective. And so we just came up with this idea. There used to be a Buck Creek Festival in Yorktown years ago. They had a Buck Creek Run. We were able to find the information from that and know kind of where it started and how it did. And we said, well, in order for us to get this off the ground, we really need, kind of a piggy bank to operate out of. And so we went to the Yorktown Chamber of Commerce, and we asked them to basically be the treasurer of our event. If they would hold the accounting for it, we would ask them to sponsor us, and we would do all the legwork. And thankfully they agreed, and so we've been able to operate our budget through their budget every year since. But yeah, that's really how it started, was just a couple of guys trying to run safely from one neighborhood to the next.
Yeah, because out there it seems like there's a lot of nice neighborhoods, but those neighborhoods are off of, and you got 32, you've got Nebo, 600, 500, all these county roads that people are flying 50 mile an hour down.
30 years ago, that's all it was county roads and cornfields. And now these neighborhoods have been developed, and along those roads, there's very little, if any, shoulder, and there's certainly no sidewalks. So the trails was just a common sense way to get this done. And it was a brave step at the time. It wasn't wildly popular, especially in the areas where we were affecting residents. So if we're going to have a trail coming at or near or in your yard, we weren't always welcomed. And even today, we're not always welcomed. And yet at the same time, someone's building a home right now in Yorktown who is known to have said, I built my home here because the trail goes through the front yard. We want to be connected. We want our kids to be able to go to their friend's house safely and not be on the roads. We want them on the trails. Runners, bikers, walkers, joggers, wheelchairs, whatever the case may be. And the way that the chamber came in was we said, let's make sure we're connecting to downtown. So the ability to connect the downtown to the schools, to the parks, to the neighborhoods, and then we built our course under that guidance. So we start downtown, we run past the schools, we run to the North Park, where the Y Park is, the Yorktown Sports Park, which is home of JAA, it's home of DCFC soccer, it's home of Munciana volleyball. We run around that loop, and then we come back and we finish in beautiful Morrow's Meadow. And it's just, it's like a family reunion now when you pull this many people into your downtown. It's just awesome. It's such a great day.
That first event, you said 2011.
Yeah.
How did that go? How did that first one go? Because I know the first one's always the trial and error one.
Well, you hold anything for the first time. You just wonder if anybody's going to come, right? You're kind of just waiting at the door like, did they get the invitation? Are they going to remember? And you don't know what to expect. And like most races, people are going to wait because they want to see what the weather is. They want to see if their friends are coming. They want to see if they get a better offer, frankly. And so the idea of running 4 miles was kind of like, well, it's not a 5K. I mean, your traditional 5K, 3.1 miles, it's more than that. And so we had to be sure to include a fun run. So we have a 1 mile fun run. Actually, it's 1.2 miles now. And but we wanted something for the kids as well. And lo and behold, people showed up. So that first year, we had 330 people. And we thought that was pretty special, 330. And I remember at the end of that year having 2 thoughts. One, could we do it again? And should we do it again? But two, how could we make it bigger? Or could we make it bigger? Or is this it? It was a one and done thing. And knowing what it took to get that first one off the ground, I think really both hindered and propelled us at the same time. So we took a step back afterwards, and we surveyed our participants as best we could. But I mean, we did this thing on nickel and dime budgets. It was like somebody showed up and we said, "Hey, what number do you want to be?" And we just wrote it on a piece of paper and stuck it to their back. I mean, that's how it felt. And the goal, for the three of us who were kind of seasoned runners, the goal was to realize that for a lot of these people, 4 miles might be their Ironman. And so what kind of atmosphere can we create to give them that same sense of accomplishment that somebody actually might get after running, biking, and swimming 15 hours? And that's what we make every decision on, is that the experience that we want the participant to have? Because if that's their moment, if that's their Boston finish line, if that's their Ironman, we want to celebrate that with them and make them feel special about that. So that experience then obviously will stay with them, just as it has with me, and they will not forget that and where it came from and the support that it generates.
Yeah, my wife and I first ran it, I believe it was 2014, and one, the course is beautiful.
Thanks.
Like I said, Yorktown's blessed to have the Morrow's Meadows. Beautiful big park. The river's right there. The trails go around it. It's a relatively flat course. Even though it's 4 miles,
that's right.
It's a flat course. It's, I'm going to say not difficult, but a little easier being flat. I think another great thing you guys did was July 4th.
Yeah.
Everyone's off that day.
That's right.
And a lot of people who are into exercise or wanting to get into shape, they want to do it in the morning, get it done, and then go party and go to their barbecues and
you got it,
and etc. So to have it on the 4th, I think it's a fantastic idea, and you can tie in the red, white, and blue.
Yep.
And we've seen it grown over the last few years. Last year, 2018, how many runners did you guys have?
Yeah, so last year was the first year that we finally topped 1,000 runners. We really were focused on that 1,000 number for the last 2 or 3 years, and we just couldn't get there. 900 the year before, 800 the year before that. But last year, not only did we top 1,000, we ended up at 1,150. So tremendous growth last year. And by the way, unless you've seen it, you just can't imagine what it looks like to cram over 1,100 runners and walkers in your downtown when you really don't have a very big downtown.
Right.
It's, for folks who are intimidated to get out and run that 4 miles, maybe think about the fun run, or maybe just come out and see it, because I guarantee there's somebody there. Really, it's everybody. It feels like everybody's there.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Yorktown is not relatively big. The downtown, I would say, is basically a main highway and 6 blocks, 7 blocks.
Yeah, we got 2 stoplights down there.
There's there's a couple banks, a couple restaurants.
That's right.
And they cram 1,200 people at the start.
Yeah.
It's a great atmosphere.
Yeah, it really is.
And then down in the park where everyone finishes, there's shade. It's a big park. Kids can run around. It's a very family-friendly atmosphere.
That's right.
And I think you guys have done excellent. Like I said, we first ran it in 2014. My wife has ran it the last couple of years. I've helped photograph it, and we've seen the growth and really enjoy being part of it.
Thanks for coming out and being a part of it. And I think that's really what matters is that sense of community and pride. And then, also just to know where that money is going. I mean, literally, we take nothing. There is no take. The cost to put on the race is basically the cost to enter the race. All the sponsorship dollars is where the profit really is coming from. But those sponsorship dollars increase when the participant number increases, because those sponsors want to be in front of that many participants. But what's great is that our course not only features the downtown and the parks and so forth, but it actually utilizes the trails. You're actually running more than half the course on the trails that were only made possible by this event. And the other thing I need to make sure I mention is the partnership with the town. Trails are expensive. They don't just magically appear. They're extremely expensive. And when I look at the dollars that we've generated over the last 9 years and what we've been able to donate to the town, what they have done in terms of installation and maintenance of trails is probably 10 to 1 to what we've given, right? Where they've put in $10 for every dollar that we've given them. And it's great that they've continued to make it a priority and recognize that it's a quality of life and it's an attraction for those who are seeking new homes and new communities.
How many trails have been created?
Yeah, we tried to get some exact mileage on that through the county to ask them to kind of map that out. We don't have an exact number on that right now. There was a very nice trail installed between Nebo and Morrison a couple years ago, and that was a federally funded trail. We don't really want to take credit for that, but it fits our mission and our goal, so we're going to. Additionally, it creates jumping points. So from there, where do you build? I mean, you can't just have a trail to nowhere. So where does it make sense? So we get asked all the time, well, what's the next goal? What's the next trail you're looking to lay? And really it's finding the missing or unconnected spots. So where is it that people want and need to go or get from that they're not connected, that they actually have to get on the road to get to where they're going? And that's our priority. So thankfully the town has installed a number of sidewalks and pathways that connect some of those missing links, if you will. But yeah, the last time we tried to chart it, it was well over 30 miles of trails in and around the Yorktown area. So fantastic.
Has it tied into that stretch of I think they call it the White River Greenway along the river? Has it connected to that? Yeah, I know it's so close.
We're so close. There's where it dead ends right now at Morrison, between Morrison and Hawthorne. I don't know what that is, less than a quarter of a mile. There's no trail or pathway there, and that falls outside of Yorktown's jurisdiction. That falls into Muncie, Delaware County, and so we hope that somebody from Muncie might hear this and say, hey, we need to make that connection happen, because honestly, it would connect the two communities. Muncie's done a great job with some of the next level trail stuff that they're doing out near Walmart on McGalliard, even just safety of sidewalks and cross paths and so forth. So we support that. Anderson, obviously, they've got an initiative through the Mounds Greenway and the Mounds project there, and they're trying to come to Yorktown. And so we have this grand vision that someday all of that will connect, where you can walk out of the high school building and ride your bike all the way to Richmond and never be on a road.
It's close.
It's close.
It's a lot closer than it was just 10, 15 years ago. Yeah, we're really spoiled with the Cardinal Greenway. The original stretch, I mean, me and my grandpa rode it all the time from the Weiser Depot out to just past the reservoir, and then they added the stretch to Gaston. So I spent many miles. And actually, where I live now, we're only 2 miles from it. So it's very spoiling. Fantastic. 2019 4 for the 4th. Yeah. Can you give me some details?
Yeah, sure. So we're set up to go. 4th of July falls on a Thursday this year. So I'm sure you're all debating, should I take Wednesday off or Friday off, or maybe just take the whole week off? But we hope if you do and you're traveling that you'll still be here on the 4th. And if you have friends coming in from out of town, what a great way to spend some time with them and show off the community that you live in. So we hope you'll come out the morning of the 4th of July. The race kicks off at 8 a.m. downtown Yorktown, right by the Speedway there. Registration is available online at www.4forthefourth.run. Everything is spelled out, FOURFORTHEFOURTH.RUN. 4forthefourth.run, and there's links there to register. Focusing on families, we do have a family discount available. I say family, it's actually a group discount. So any group of people, 4 or more, can register at a reduced price on there. The fun run option is available. That's a 1.2-mile run. And we also have, if you just want to buy the shirt, you can just buy the shirt right there online as well. Speaking of the shirt deadline is this Thursday, June the 20th. So 2 weeks prior to race, we need time to order those. We'll order extras, and those will be available first come, first serve at Packet Pickup, which happens on Wednesday, July 3rd from 4 to 7. All of that takes place in Morrows Meadow. Race morning, you can register on site as well if you're just showing up for the first time because you just wanted to see what the weather was going to be like. That's fine. But it's always beautiful in 72 in Yorktown, so come on out. Otherwise, check us out on Facebook. We've got a little presence on Instagram as well, but a great social media presence via Facebook, and we try to keep all the information up to date there. A couple of fun awards that we've added. So in addition to the overall winners and the age group awards, last year we added an award called the Top Dog Award. This is for the fastest finisher with a dog, and that's sponsored by Animal Medical Center. honor simply because we want dogs and pets out on the trails. We want to support that. We also have an award called the Hot Wheels Award. The Hot Wheels Award is the fastest finisher pushing a stroller with a child in it.
My wife was in that division last year.
Yes, I'm sure she's going for the win this year. But again, we want to support families and moms and dads who are out there pushing strollers and getting it done. We want to support that, and so we've created awards for those. Additionally, this year we've got a couple more fun awards. We've got the Best Dressed Award, the Most Patriotic Award, and my favorite new one, the Fantastic Four. So any group of four that just has it going on and wants to come out and win an award, we got one for you. So, yeah, a lot of great sponsors, a lot of great events, and, man, we'd love to see everybody out there.
Yeah, it's great. You know, there are some very competitive runners there that will knock that out in about 20 minutes. And then you got families, groups of friends just out to have a good time, get some exercise in. One thing people might be concerned about, I'd like for you to address, is there's been a lot of construction on that bridge that crosses the White River between Morrow's Meadows and where
That's right.
the Y is. Has that affected the race last year, or is it going to affect the race this year?
Yeah, it's a great question. And the short answer is yes. It did affect the race last year. And ultimately what our solution was to have two separate start times. So we send the fun run off first, as well as the competitive walkers. So if you're someone who is a competitive walker where no running is allowed, we send those folks off right at 8 o'clock, and we hold everybody else back about 10 minutes. And then what we do is we basically, when you start the race, you must cross a timing mat. We've just simply narrowed that mat to allow fewer people through at a time so that we don't have this kind of bubble effect happening at the bridge. The second key to that is to get everybody across the bridge before the leaders are on their way back. So keep in mind that this bridge that we're referring to is a two-lane bridge with only one lane working right now. But it worked beautifully last year. So no issues at all. If everything happens the same way, the only way that this doesn't work is if we hit 2,000 participants and I can't get that many people across the bridge before the leaders are coming back. And that would be a great problem to have. We would love to have that as an issue.
I got to sign the photograph up on that bridge, and to be truthful, I didn't see any hiccup at all.
No, it was great. Really, it was. The flow. And as I said, you got these competitive runners coming back, and what they're running up against is the casual walker. And remember when I talked about just that community? Nobody's going to be upset. Nobody's going to get, their feathers ruffled over this. It's here they come. Check them out. Look how cool they are. Wow, they're so fast. And at the same time, whether you got your dog, your stroller, your kid, your aunt, your uncle, grandma, grandpa, you're still just one foot in front of the other, and you're going to finish that 4 miles. And we got a medal for you at the end.
Great. Chris, you got a great story.
Thanks.
310 pounds, 2007, and then you're an Ironman.
Yeah.
That's inspirational. I hope someone listening to this will say, hey, I can go out, get in shape,
Absolutely.
go do a 5K, start there, and go forward. Yeah. So thanks for stopping by, talking about your story, the 4 for the 4th. I hope everyone listening comes out and at least checks out the 4 for the 4th. It's a great event, a lot of fun. I'll be there. I'll take your picture. And anything else you need to address there? Like,
no, that's
we got
it.
The social media.
Once again, just a shout out to our committee. We mentioned Pete Olson and Ted Johnson. Bob Ratchford's been a part of that. So many others over the years have come and gone and been with us. But that core group right off the bat there, Ryan Gernon has been just a great help to us with marketing and so forth. We've had a number of people in the past. John Mickles, a former winner, who came onto our board. Sean Moore, who's a top female athlete, came onto our board this year. Ryan Groves. I'm going to forget some people here. Norm All's been with us from the beginning. Just a tremendous group. Christy Baker's been with us. We've had a number of people who just are passionate about healthy living, quality of life. They want to be part of that. And listen, folks, you can too. If you've never done anything like this, it's a great first step, and I promise it's such a supportive community. You'll really enjoy yourself.
Definitely. Chris, thanks again. Like I said, check out the 4 for the 4th. You're going to be off work that day most likely. Start your day in Yorktown. As always, follow me on Instagram and Facebook, the Jake Soul Podcast. Subscribe on YouTube or iTunes to get every episode downloaded automatically. Thanks. This episode of the Jake Soul Podcast brought to you by Boxer Baby Bow Ties. If you have a cat or dog, you have to check out Boxer Baby Bow Ties. These are fashionable accessories for cats and dogs that are handmade by owner Kyle Marie Carsey right here in Indiana. You live out of state? No worries. All items ship anywhere in the U.S. So pamper your fur baby and show off their unique personality with their accessories for fashion-forward pets. Contact Kyle at boxer.baby.bowties@gmail.com or on Instagram at boxer.babies.bowties. Also check out her online store at boxerbabyboutique.com.